All right. So before the others get here, I will start with introducing these templates that I have created here. So this is week 5. Welcome everyone. Now, week 5 lessons focused on images, how to upload images on the web page, and also we looked at the position properties. So I'm going to increase this screen. So we looked at position properties and we looked at how to upload images using image sprites and image map. So what we're going to do here is we want to create a web page with all these lessons that we've learned from the class lesson. Now, I have here a template that we're going to use to illustrate these topics. Now, I have previously created this for this lesson. What I have here are just text that we're going to include images to make this content or to make the web page come to life. Now, I have a text here as it displays on the web page, the heading, which we use the H1, and it says School of Programming and Software Development. So we're going to make use of this heading as our page header, and we're going to include a logo to this heading and give it a background. So we have a well-defined header for our web page. And also we have a paragraph that introduces the school. And we also have a H2, which is a subheading that introduces the approach for the school. So these are just informations. We are assuming here that this is a web page and we want to make use of these informations. So they are just normal informations you find on web pages. And as well is also the school information as well. Okay, so now we don't have any styling. We just have the text on the web page. So because of time is the reason why I created this, so we can be able to look at the main topics for today. So let's get started. Now, first, we want to make sure that the web page is displayed properly. What we have here are default displays, and by default, every content or element we add to the web page displays from the left side of the page. So by default, we have all the text displaying from the left, and we also have them in block formats. So what we're going to do is we are going to organize these texts in a way that we'll be able to style them separately and give unique display to each of the sections that we are going to set on this web page. So we're going to start with the heading, where we are going to include as the header. So let's do this with a container. We've previously looked at how to make use of div elements. So I would be using the term container for this. So I want to put this heading and I'm going to include a logo for our header. So I'll put it in a div element and I'm going to type div. And I want this heading to be in the header. So I'll give this container the class name header. Now, for those who don't know, the header is a section on the web page, usually at the top of the web page, where you find those catchy or attractive content that introduces the web page. Sometimes it's an image, sometimes it's just plain text, sometimes it's an animation, but it's usually the first section of the page that gives the user an idea of what the page is about. All right, so we are going to include a logo. Now, including a logo means we are going to make use of the image elements, which we have learned from the class lesson. So I'm going to include a logo. Now, according to the order of the lines we have on this HTML document, so if I want to add a logo here, it means that the logo will be displayed on top of this text. That's according to the default order, but we could always position contents or elements where we want using the different position properties from the style sheet. But we could decide here if we want the logo to display before the text or we want the logo to display after the text. So it's up to however you want to design your web page. So I would just go with adding the image before the text, so we can have it displayed before the text. So I'm going to use the image img elements, and in the source, I am going to specify the path. So I have added some images for this illustration. Now I have several images here I'll be using. So what I want here is the logo.png image. So like we've always done, we reference the path, we reference the file that we want to include. So we're going to go to the images folder. So like I said, if you want to reference a file, the first thing you want to do is you want to take note of where you are on your directory. So this is my root directory, which is week 5, and I am typing from week 5 .html documents. So now I know that I am currently in the week 5.html document, and I want to reference an image from the images folder called logo.png. So this will help you to identify how you want to locate the file. For example, if I were to be in a folder, I would start with a double dot to come out from the folder before entering the images folder. But since we know we are in the root directory, we do not need to come out using the double dots. So we go straight to the images folder, which is called images, and then specify the file that we want to reference, which is logo.png. So I'm going to type it here. Now save this. Now the alternate text for this, we've learned that it's always good to include the alternate text for images for easier for accessibility purpose. Now, for example, if the user have a bad network and let's say the page does not fully load completely, or the server is not able to load the image properly, so the text is the alternate options for the user to be able to understand what image is there. So now we're going to give an alternate text for this, and I could call this school logo. So I would rather give the whole name of the school, but just because of time, I'm just going to quickly call the school logo and save. So let's see how this displays on the web page before we go further. Now, the size of this image is quite big. So if I increase the size of the web page, it still looks big, right? So we're going to make sure that this image is displayed as a small logo next to the heading, which is the name of the school. But first, we're just trying to make sure that the page is well formatted by adding the group of elements that we want to, let's say we want this, as we want the heading and the image to be grouped together. That's why we have them in the div called header. So this is how we format our page to make sure that the related elements are in the same group. So when we style them, we give uniform or we give unique styles to each of these elements that we've grouped together. So next, I want to have, we have the introduction. So I didn't include introduction because it's just going to be the about, and let's have the rest of the contents in a container. So starting from the H2, which we have here as our approach. So I'm going to put a div element here, and I'll call this main content. So this is the main content. So I'm just going to call this class content. And to make sure that everything is well structured, let's put the about into a container, and I'm going to call the about intro. So this will be the introduction, which is this text. So I'll copy this and paste in the intro. And the rest of the contents, starting from the H2, cut and put in the container we have as content. Now, by doing this, it doesn't have much difference on the web page, because by default, the div element starts from the left, just like the other elements we have. So according to the order of the line, that's how the contents are displayed. So nothing changes. But when we style these contents, when we style these classes, we give unique changes to each of them. All right, now we have the page organized. So we can decide where we want to start applying styles to. So let's apply some basic styles to the page before we start with the images. So the first element we want to start here is we want to start with the first div, which is the header, to make sure that it's displaying properly. So we use the class that we've created called header. And the first thing we want to do is we want to fix the display, and we use the display property with the value of flex. So we've looked at how these values work before, and we're just applying them to be able to position or style these contents, that's these elements, will enable us to style these elements conveniently or flexibly. Now we want to align the items to the center. So this would make sure that the contents are centered in a vertical axis. And I'm going to justify contents and also use the value center. So this makes sure that from on the vertical axis and horizontal axis that the contents are well centered at the middle of the container header, which is header. So I'm going to refresh this and we see that they are now displayed next to each other and centered in the header container. So we still have the image size problem, but we're going to get there. We're going to fix that when we get there. So next, let's include the padding, because we can see that the contents are displayed from the edge of the screen, which is not nice. So let's use the padding to create a space around the content. And we're just going to give a little space of 15 px. I'll save this and refresh. So not much space, but we don't have the contents displayed from side to side at the edge of the screen, which isn't a good display. So now this is okay, but we're still going to add more styles to this. So let's give the header a background, which would help us or help the user to understand the sections. So we're going to use a background color. Let's just use yellow. All right, so this should be enough for the header. Now, to make sure that the logo is displayed properly, we're going to create a class for the image. So we have the image here where we uploaded and using the image elements. Now inside, since the image is a void element, it has no close tags. So we always add the attributes in the open tag. And here I want to add a class that would enable me to style this image uniquely, separate from the other content inside this header container. So I'm going to call this logo. I will close this so we can see the whole of it. So I'm going to call this class logo, and it's unique to the image elements. This will help enable us to be able to style the image itself separately. So I'll use the class logo. So for responsiveness, this is to make sure that whenever we adjust the screen size, the image maintains its width. We use the max width property, and the max width property is max hyphen width. So let's give the value to be 150 px. I'll save this. Let's see how it's displayed. Now, the width of the image has been reduced. So this looks better than the original size of the image. So this is one way to style an image to the size you desire on your web page. All right, so we fixed the image size. Next, we want to make sure that the heading is a proper header style. So let's add a style to the heading, which is H1. Let's give the font family as, let me try this. Hopefully this works. Did I get the spelling correct? Okay. All right. So we've looked at how to add fonts. So this is for the font family. I'm going to include the family. So we always add the second option for the browser to always fall back to if it doesn't find the specified fonts that we want. So the sans serif is the default font for most browsers, and the browser would use the sans serif if it can't find the specified fonts that we've included in the font family. So I'm going to save this and let's see if this changes. All right, so we have the font family changed. Now, next, we can increase the font size. So I'm going to use the font size property of 2am. So you can use px. There are different units of measurements we use on the HTML document. Okay. Next, we can change the color, but let's leave the color as it is, as black. We can come back to that. And to make sure the text is aligned properly, we're going to align this text. So I would increase the size of the page so we see how the header is displayed. And I want to align the text to the center. Might not make much difference, but it's always good for proper formatting. So you see how the text is displayed now. All right. Now we also have other heading on the page. So let's start other heading, and the rest of the heading on the page are H2. So I didn't give a class for the H1 like I did for the logo because I have just one H1 on the page. But if you're styling your page and you have other H1, it's best you use a class for the specific header or the heading you want to style, so it doesn't affect other heading on your page. So I have several H2. I have H2 for the approach. I have H2 for our courses, H2 for facilities. So I want to make sure that all the H2 are displayed at the center of the page. So I'm going to style the H2 without using a class. So I want this same style. I'm just going to copy and paste this. But for the size, I want it smaller, so I'm going to use 20px. I think this should do. I'm going to save this, refresh, and then we have it's changed. All right, so next Next, we have next on the page the introduction, and we have given a class for the introduction or intro. So I'm going to style this intro. And I just want the margin, because it's always good to set margins for the contents on the page to display away from the main margin itself. It's the best format for text. It doesn't look good when you have your text starting from the default margin of the browser. So I want the margin to be 10 px. And I want a unique font size of 20 px. It's a bit bigger than the other text on the page. And we have the intro styled. Now, next, we want to include some images. So this is where the topics from the class lesson comes in. So we have the different sections on this page. We have the approach, our courses. Now I have on my images folder, I have images for the course icons. So we look, the courses here states that there are different courses the school offers. So let's include the image. Now I have an image for icons, so I'm going to open this. Okay, so it's not displaying properly. All right, so now you can see the image I have for the course icons. Now, I don't want to upload this whole image on the section because it's a big image and it's going to take too much space. And I also want the icons to display in an inline format. I don't want them to display like this. So this is where the image sprite comes in for us to be able to cut out the specific area of the image that we want from this whole image. We are going to use the image sprite to do that. All right, so I'll close this and we're going to add the images, but I want to put them in their own container so I can style them separately. So I'll go to the section for our courses and I would add a div. Now I'll call this parent div icon. I'll call it icons. All right, now I want to have the different courses and the icon for this section. So I don't want the names, I just want only the icons that I have in the image, right? So I would have more container for each icon. So here you're going to see why the div element is very important for structuring your web page. So I would have a class that I would use to style this image and also include the image as a background for this container. So the class here would be for the first icon. Let's give this as HTML. So I'll call it HTML image. I'll just add more of this and change the name of the classes. So next, we want to have another class. This should be for JavaScript. So this is JS. Let's have for PHP. Java. And Python. So assuming these are courses that we offer in the school, and I want to make sure that just the icons are displayed for users to understand. So it adds more meaning to the content on the page. So we don't just look at the text before reading. It could give the user a good idea of what is the section entails. So let's add these icons, but we're going to do this from the CSS. And before that, let's style the contents on the page. Recall that we included all the contents of the page in a container that we give the class as content. So let's style this content first before we go on to the images. And I just want to make sure that the content of the page has proper margin. So I'm just going to set the margin to 50 px. All right, now we can add the icons. So to add images from the style sheets, we use the sprite map as one of the options. Normally, we've looked at how to add images as a background in an element using the background image property. So here we want to use a sprite map. So I'm going to style the icon for the general image. So I had created the class for the whole image called icons. And first we just want to fix the display, but let's add the images before we fix the display. So the first image we're going to have here will be for HTML. Now, this is how we add parts of an image with CSS on the web page. So I'll go to my browser and I want to search for sprite cow. And I'll go to sprite cow. Now here, all I have to do is open the image I want to use, and the image is my icons 2. Now, I believe you would know how to navigate to images when uploading files from the browser. So I'll open the image. Now, the first image we want here is for HTML. Yeah, HTML image. So I'm going to pick the background and then cut out the parts of it. So I'm just selecting the HTML. Now it has a background picker that looks for the edges of the image. So when cutting out or selecting an image from the whole image file, you want to be careful when selecting it to make sure that there is a defined edge or defined margin for that particular part of the image. So now, once you select the image, it automatically gives you the location of the image on the file. So all I have to do is copy this whole block of code, but you want to be careful when doing this. Now, there are different websites that provide these services, but the best for you to do is understand how it works, so you'll be able to adjust this or modify the codes when you copy them. So I'm going to copy out this whole code and I'll paste on my CSS. Now, recall that the class isn't sprite. What we have for the class is HTML image. So I would make sure that I am using the right class I have created because it's for the HTML icon. So I'm going to change the sprite to HTML image. And then also it assumes that we have an image folder named as imgs. But what I have here is images spelled as images. So I will correct this and make sure that the folder name is the right spelling so it can locate the image I have. Now, because of the name of the image, it automatically takes the name here as well. So the name of the image is icons2.png. So its exact name, it's used for the reference. And the rest of the syntax is to make sure that the background has no repeat. So remember, we learned this from last week, where when you upload images, you use no repeats, and this just sets the coordinates. And then this also automatically, the site gives us the exact size of that particular area of the image. So the size is 143 px wide and the height is 64 px high. So that's the length. So we do not adjust this because it's usually the right calculation if we select the right part of the image. So I'm going to save this and I would return to our page to see if we have successfully uploaded the icon, the parts of the image from the icons file. So I would refresh and we have the parts of the image displaying. So if I had not done this, I would have had the whole image, which would display differently, taking up the whole space. But what I want is I want them to display inline just below the section itself for courses. So we can repeat this process to include the rest of the images as icons. So I'll go back, and next on the list here we have JavaScript. So I would select JavaScript and copy the code. So the name of the class is JS. So remember, when you paste the code, you change the name of the class to the class name you have created and correct the file referencing. So I'll copy this to make sure it's images and save. And if we go back to the page, we have it listed. So recall that the div container displays content by default in a block style. So we're going to make sure that these contents are displayed inline after we've added all the icons we want to. All right, so I'm going to add the rest of the icon. And next we have for PHP. Next, we have Java. And last, we have Python. So I'll correct the paths and the name of the class, just Python. I'll save this and return to the page. Now we have all the icons selected. So let's make use of the display properties that would length to make sure that the icons are displayed inline rather than the block style it's having here. So recall that we have looked at position properties, we looked at display properties. So I want to use this opportunity to show us how we can style content using the display property, and also we'll look at the position property. So for each content here, we have different ways we can make sure that they are displayed inline rather than the block format here. So we have the container for all the icons, which is called icons. Now, one option is we can go to the container for icons and specify the display like we have done before to be flex. I'm going to save this, and automatically it's adjusts to inline. Or we can go to the individual image and set the display itself. So assuming we don't have this, I'm going to comment this out, and I'll set this. So if we want each of the image individually to display inline, so first we want the HTML to display inline. I would set this now to, instead of using the flex, I'm going to use the inline for this. All right, so I would save this now. Now the HTML icon itself would remain where it is because it's already the first icon there, and you won't be able to tell if it's inline or not. But the display is no longer a block style, but in an inline block style. So for us to see this properly, we're going to apply it to the other icons so you can see the difference. So I'm going to copy this and I'll put this in the next icon. I would save this. So when I refresh, we see that the icon itself now displays inline. And we can go on with the rest like that. So for each element or each class that we specify this display, it automatically adjusts to the display we set for it. So we could choose which of them we want to display inline and which we want to display as a block style. Now we can also look at the position properties for this with these elements, but let's quickly look at how to make use of image map. Now, this last part, it's going to be a creative part. We want to include an image. We want to upload an image to the page that would be a clickable image that is going to enable users to redirect to a part of this website or an external website for users to either register or get more information. So we're going to make use of an image for that. And to do that, we are going to upload the image, but let's go to image map where we're going to upload the image and get the right clickable area of the image. So I'll go to my browser and I'll type image. Okay, I'll just go with image map generator. And the first website, which is imagemap.net, is my first option. So I'll select the image. So I have an image that I want to use for this part. Now, this is the original image with these graphic contents. Journey with us, click here, and the school logo. So this is just a creative image I've created for this illustration. Now, what I want to do here is I want the users to follow this instruction where if they click this rocket image, they are going to be redirected to the school website. So this is the school, and this is the rocket that was going to serve as the link to the website. So let's make use of this image. Now I want to select the parts, and you can select the shape of the selector here. So I would use a rectangle because the image, I want the whole of this rocket to be selected. So I click on the parts where I want, and I drag this selector. Now, once this is done, we can include on the link the website that we want. So you could do this here, or you could do it on the HTML document. So and I'm going to give this style to let's just say Johnny. And you specify how you want the link to be open. You want it to open on another tab, or you want it to open on the same tab of the page browser. So I want it to open on another, so I select blank. That's the target. So now display would show me the code. So all I have to do is copy this code and paste on my HTML document. I will come to my document. Now, this is why you need to understand before copying any code from these service or libraries or any service web service website. So now when they give you a predefined code, you want to understand how to adjust these codes and why you are doing so. So now from the code here, the website or the function here has been able to see the name of the image itself and created the image tag for us, which has the source attributes. So we no longer need to do this by ourselves like we did for the logo image. So by uploading it here, it uses the name and creates this image tag and the source for us. Now, the source itself now does not tell the folder, but we know exactly where this image is located. So we're going to modify this to make sure that it locates the image in the right directory. So it's currently in the images folder. So we use the right path for the source, and it gave us a value for the use map attributes. So remember, we always include the use map to the image tag for us to be able to make use of the map elements as well. So it gave us image map and also the name as image map. So we don't need to do this by ourselves. Now the target is blank, and because I did not specify a URL, it didn't give us a URL. So here I can include the URL, and I want it to be the school. So HTTPS school.madrid. That's fine. So this is the website format that we use, and the coordinates has been set already, so we do not need to specify any of this. And then the shape attribute here is for the rectangle selector that we use to select the image, just to make sure that all is well with our selection. All right, so I will save this now, and if I refresh the page, we should have the image uploaded, but not just uploaded, we also have the area of the image selected as a clickable area. So you can see from the cursor, it changes when we go to this area that we've selected as a clickable area. So the cursor now is a pointer that is pointing to the link. It tells us that when we click this, we are going to a specified link. So if I click this now, it takes us to a new tab, and we'll go to the school browser. So this is just a creative way to design a web page. There are also other purposes on use for the image map. So it all depends on the type of website you're designing. So currently we have a good looking website with images uploaded in different ways that we've learned from the class lesson. So before we go to positions, because of time, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask questions now while we look at the different positions. And we're not going to spend too much time on this as well. All right, so while we think about the questions, if we do not understand any parts of this, I want to quickly show you the different position properties, or just a few, just for us to see how they work on the web page. So we're going to make use of these images classes, or the images that we've uploaded. So let's say we want to make use, let's use the JavaScript, and here we have the JavaScript class, and I want to change the position of this image. So when it comes to position properties, we have different position properties. We have static, we have relative, we have absolute, and we have fixed. Now, static is usually the default position property, and static does nothing to the content itself. It just remains where it's is. So it's just the default positioning for HTML elements generally. So where they follow the normal flow of the documents based on the HTML structure. So wherever it's listed, that's where it will be. So let's look at the different positions. So let's say we give the different position for them first as static. So we're just exploring with these images. So if I save this, the images are still going to display where they are because the default position are usually static. Now, we don't just change the position. Whenever we change or we want to modify position of elements, it's followed by the properties as top, bottom, left, or right properties. So for static, if we include the top, bottom, left, or right properties, it would make no difference because the static is always just like the name, it remains static. But if let's say we change the JavaScript image to relative. So relative is one of the value. And once we change this, we want to specify, or we have to specify the relative position. So whenever we use the relative value, elements that are assigned to this will be positioned relative to their original position, and surrounding elements won't be affected. But there will be a space where the elements would have been in the static position. So we expect that the space here would remain, but the image itself, it's going to adjust according to the position properties we give. So let's say we want a space from the left. So let's use left. And let's just use 20px. So a space of 20px from the left. And from the top, also I want a space of 20px. I'm going to save this and let's see how this displays. So because it's relative, the position where it originally was remained empty, and the content around did not try to fill up that position. But for the case of absolute, it's going to change. So let's see how it looks. So the image itself, once it leaves its original position by using the properties here, the other content fill up the space. So that's why we do not have so it depends on the content or element you're using. So we're using an image, so it might work differently depending on the elements. So here, but what we're saying here is that for absolute, that the space where the original elements takes is now occupied by the surrounding elements. Now there's also fixed. Once we set the value to fixed, this makes sure that when so I'm going to refresh this. So the fixed now is adjusted according to the value we give for the top and left. So this means that wherever we scroll on the page, on this particular page where we have the elements, and the element styled, the elements will remain fixed on the web page, fixed on the values we give for the position properties. So it doesn't change. It remains fixed on that position. But if we use sticky, I'm going to save this and refresh. So what sticky does is it keeps the elements on the same level with the scroll bar. So I'm going to change the position properties. Refresh. Let's see if it adjusts. Okay, so this, like I said, it behaves differently according to the elements. So let's say we use the logo for this illustration. The logo will be a perfect example. Okay, so let's set the position. Sticky. So hopefully this works. Okay, so it's not applying to the image. All right, but we can always try other elements, but because of time, I won't be able to explore that much. But what the sticky does, it keeps the elements, you specify the position. So now one of the features you want to look at also is when you're applying these position properties, sometimes you have to make sure the selector is well selected. Like here, we are using a class. So sometimes the class, the browser or does not read the document that's detailed that it has to look for. Let's say we have here image and the logo is the class. So it would look for the image tag first. So sometimes when you apply these position properties to the image, to the element itself, you see it's working well. But once it's applied to the class, you need to make sure that the selector is well specified on the CSS. So for example, let's say we want to do image and logo. So this would make sure that it enforces the selection. So it behaves differently for some elements according to the styles we have in them. So some styles may be a hindrance to why the position properties are not working. All right, so we're going to stop here, but I think we've covered most of the topics or all of the topics, and we have our web page designed properly. All right, so in absence of questions, we're going to end the class here, and I wish you all success in your assignments and have a lovely weekend. All right.
Thank you.